Hello and welcome. In this video I am going to discuss how we can make moving platforms for our 2.5 side-scroll game, and then how we can keep our player on those platforms so that he doesn't fall off. First off, let's start by just making a moving platform. So I'm going to create a game object cube and rename it really quick to moving platform. I'm also going to position it in space so that it makes sense. I'll put it over here where the edge of our world ends, and this would work the same as if we were moving up and down or left and right. When a platform's moving up and down, what will happen is the player will bounce, and when it's moving left and right, the player will fall off unless we help the player stay in the space that the platform is moving in. And this is actually fairly simple. We're just going to do a set parent. But before we get there, let's get this platform moving. So I'm going to add an FSM to it, and might as well name this FSM. We'll call this the platform move FSM, and state 1 we will name to just call this moving. I'm going to use an iTween action. There's a lot of ways you could do this. There's a lot of iTweens, there's translates, there's some other things. This particular iTween move 2 works pretty good because it has some blending effects. So it looks like I actually added it twice. Let me get rid of one of them. There we go. Okay. Has some blending effects that make the ease types nice. So since the FSM is on our platform, and that's what I want to be moving, I'm going to just use the owner. Then I get some options for how we want to move it. I'm going to use a vector position, because I know right here my platform is at 12, minus 0.5, and 0. And then I just want it to move over, so let's set this to say, well, it moved by 10 units, so I'll have it set to 22 on the X, but then I also don't want it to move on the Y, so I want to keep the Y set to the same height, and Z at 0, so it doesn't move in depth, and it doesn't move up and down, it just moves in X. Time is going to decide how fast this happens. Delay is whether or not there's any delay involved. I'm going to use world space because my game is in X and Y. And as far as ease type goes, this is what it's basically the animation curves. I'm going to use ease in, out, quad, but feel free to play around with that. A lot of interesting stuff in there. And then loop type. If I were to pick loop, the platform would start here, move to its destination in X, and then reset over here, and then do it again, sort of like almost like a conveyor belt or something. I want ping pong. I want it to move over, and then I want it to move back, and then just keep doing that. As far as looking at and the path goes, it's perfectly aligned in space where I want it, so I don't want it to be turning to look at or trying to find a path or anything. I'm just going to leave all that unchecked. I don't want it to stop on exit. I want it to loop and not finish. So I'm going to leave all that set up and hit play, and we'll see if it's working. You can see that it is. It moves over and it moves back. Excellent. So, but if I jump on this thing, oh, it just falls right out from under us. So I can kind of stay on it if I try to, but if I'm not moving around, my character just falls right off the platform. And the reason is the space for our platform is moving, but it's not telling it to move our player. So let's go back to our platform FSM here, and let's add a new FSM. And we'll call this FSM the set parent FSM. And state 1 will say, we'll call this the not parented state. And we're going to do two things. We're going to set the parent, so we'll add that. And then the other thing we're going to do, we're going to use a trigger event. And I want that to happen last. So I don't have a trigger set up yet, so let's go ahead and get that done as well. Take this cube. I've got a collider, but if I check it to be a trigger, I'm going to fall through it. I need a box collider, but I also need a trigger. So I'm just going to paste this component as new. Then I can move it up if I'd like, so that it's somewhere in my scene that makes sense. I'd like it underneath my mesh renderer here. Then I'm going to check this one to trigger, and then I'm going to position it in the scene. So I'll try to move this so you can see it. It'll probably be hard on your screen, but I'm going to say Edit Collider. I want it to be just barely smaller in X and Z so that I don't hit it when I'm on the edges of the block. And then in Y, I'll set it to maybe 0.25, and then I'm going to move it up in space. So again, it's probably really hard to see, but it's just right here on the top, kind of hanging out. And now I've got a trigger on this object, so I can use this trigger event. So I'm going to say, if the player isn't in this thing, we want to set a specific parent, specific game object. We want to set the global variable of player, because our player tells the world that I'm the player, so that's the variable we're going to use. And then we want to leave the parent actually set to none, because in this state we're not parented. And then as far as our trigger event goes, excuse me, I'm going to say on trigger enter with what tag? Player tag. I want you to send the event, and we've actually got some system events. I'm going to use the trigger enter system event. It says, hey, you're not using this. I'm going to click here to add it. And then I'm going to copy this state and paste it. And it's going to give me a warning because that was my start state. I'm going to say, no, I don't want that to write over my start state. And then in this one, I'm going to name it to parented. And we're going to change our transition. Get rid of that for a second. And instead of it going to be on trigger enter, I'm going to change this to system event of trigger exit. So when we're not on it, we're going to jump and enter it, and then when we're on it, we're already in it, and I jump off, I need a on exit. It gives me the warning I'm not using it, and then I click the warning to add it, drag and connect. So in our first state, we're setting the parent to nothing. If the player enters, we jump over here. In this state, what we actually want to set is we want to set the player, or excuse me, set the parent of the player to the moving platform. So I'm going to drag the moving platform into the parent. And then on this here, we want to say on trigger exit, send the event trigger exit, make sure that it's the player that's in the tag. And now it should work. So let's make this a little bigger. And I'll walk over here so we can see our platform. If I jump onto the platform, sure, there we go. I stay stuck to it. If I jump off of the platform, however, I'm not stuck to it anymore. And so it's working perfectly. Unless I fall and die. And so that's the gist of it. This would work if the platform was moving up and down too, to keep the character from bouncing kind of wildly. And so it's pretty simple. I just have one set up to move the platform, and then another one set up to control the parenting. Alright, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.